All right, we are live. I'm so excited. As you're all settling in, I just want to know if you guys can hear us and see us. Let us know in the chat. There's usually like a 5 minute lag, so that's why I like to join early. And I'm just testing here to see. Yay, I can see us. Woohoo! Okay, friends. Put for us in the chat, where you're tuning from. We'd love to know what your role is on a product team. If you're a product manager, developer, UX designer, agile coach, whatever, right? Share with us. If you're not in product, that's fine too. I honestly feel that the stuff that David is going to share is honestly applicable to anyone who creates value on any team. So let us know in the chat. I am super duper excited. Okay, as we wait for people to engage in the chat and let us know, I'm going to do a quick intro to get it out of the way. David, I feel like at this point, I know so many things about you, and I almost have to pretend that I don't know so much in order to have more of that curiosity. But, I met you through one of my mentors who is in the agile space. He is also an author. And I saw your content. We chatted 2 weeks ago. And what really attracted me to you is how genuine you are and how you have this underdog journey that so many people can relate to. And it's so impressive how you've built this 75,000 plus following and have shared knowledge to thousands and thousands of people who have benefited, because I have seen the amazing comments that people, leave you. Of course, I have to show everyone this amazing book. You can see that I've took a gazillion notes. One of my favorite books so far, Untrapping Product Teams. And my goodness, it is endorsed by some top notch leaders in the product space, including Marty Kagan. That is super impressive. So, you started your career as a software developer in 2008, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of my audience can connect with the fact that you were a pivoter. Why don't you share with us what was the pivotal moment for you? Maybe we'll actually I'm actually going to be a little bit unconventional here, because I've seen some of the podcasts. A lot of people ask you this question of what made you, maybe switch to software engineering to product. I want to go all the way back to your childhood. Was there a tell when you look back that makes you realize, oh my goodness, the behaviors that I was exhibiting as a child and the experiences that I've had really, really, indicate that I would become a product manager?
That's an interesting thing. As a kid, I was always ultra curious and I wanted to challenge everything. So for me, I wanted to know why we were doing what we were doing, what was the sense of that. And if I didn't understand that, I didn't want to do. I did that in school, and some teachers hated me for that because I remember when I studied Portuguese, there was all of this grammar thing, and I would say, why is it important to learn this? And the teacher would tell me, well, it's important because then you learn how to write better. I said, but why should I care about it? And then I was asking, always asking. And one thing that also happened, if I go back to childhood, whenever I would receive a toy, the first thing I would do was not to play with the toy, was to understand how it worked. So I would actually go to my father's toolbox, take some screwdriver, and I would open the toy. And I would try understanding what makes the sounds, how it goes, how those things work here, and why did they do like that. And I had a lot of fun. But of course, not always the things would go back working.
Wow. And I remember reading that you were nicknamed Mr. Y.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
amazing. What was it like being raised by your parents? You shared that you really, had a different career trajectory through your upbringing. I remember reading something about how one of your parents didn't finish high school. Tell us a little bit more about that. What was your relationship with your family? Were they supportive of the path that you took? So curious.
yeah, my parents were always super supportive, 100%. And it's quite interesting because I come from a big family. Both sides of my parents, they have 10 plus siblings, both
Wow.
sides. Yeah, so I have more than a hundred cousins first level. So
Oh
it's
my
something.
goodness.
Yeah, yeah. It's a lot of people in the family, a lot of, but my parents decided that they would not have a lot. So it's just my brother and I. So, and the difference in age is still 10 years apart. So for a while, I was the only kid. I remember my dad, he was always reading. So he wanted to wake up, and before going to work he wanted to read something. He always wanted to read, and he was super curious, but he never finished high school. My mom also never. They started working at the age of 13, 14,
Wow.
things like that. And my dad told me a few things that always stuck with me. He said, in life you can do anything, it's only about how much effort you are willing to put into that. Yeah. And then he said, what is important is you need to remain humble and treat everyone the same. So as long as you do that, life will be generous to you. The moment you step out of that, life's going to hurt you.
That's amazing. No wonder you're so down to earth. And my God, 100 basically cousins, you were saying?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
insane. No wonder you're so good at building relationships. It sounds like you got a lot of practice in the family.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. So it has always been like a Christmas with many people and so on. It's always crazy, always crazy. But also it comes different things. For example, my dad was always a nonconformist in comparison to his siblings. He he decided I had to learn English when I was 9.
Wow.
He said you have to learn English, and that's gonna be the future. If you do not speak a second language, you cannot find a good job. And important to say, I'm not from a big town in Brazil. I'm from a small town in the middle of nowhere. For example, there is no cinema around there. The closest cinema is like 60 miles from there. And then if you want to go to a McDonald's or all of this, they simply don't exist around there. So my father said, you have to learn English. You have to just to be differently. And then one of my aunts asked him like, why are you taking the kid to learn English if he doesn't even know how to speak Portuguese?
Oh my God, that is so funny. It kind of reminds me of myself, I was fortunate growing up in the Middle East in a tiny little island called Bahrain to go to a bilingual school. I learned English. I spoke in English before I spoke in Arabic. And I'm very grateful because it would have been very difficult for me to actually have the opportunities that I've had and immigrate to another country and get all this exposure that I get. So I really admire and thankful, to my parents. And I also admire, your parents for giving you that incentive and that motivation. You have very wise parents. So, um, what made you decide to get into software engineering?
This is something I mindfully chose. So what happened is when I started learning English, I really liked this, and it was my first contact with computers. I didn't have a computer at home, so in Brazil things were hard, so we had to make choices. But at school, I did some exercise in the computer, and it was amazing for me. I liked all of these things, how it worked. I was super curious about it. And then when I turned 14, my dad said, "I think you have enough of English now and you like computer." So yeah, and then he told me one thing. It was another lesson, which is make choices. Sometimes you cannot have it all, but you need to choose what you can have. So he said, I can afford bringing a computer home, but I cannot afford both English and computer.
Wow.
I, I said, well, sounds good, because then we can buy all of these CD courses and I do at home. I learn alone. That's okay. And I wanted the computer. I wanted that at home. And I remember before that, that was something a bit funny for me, because I did watch many cartoons when I was younger, but I was fascinated about computers and laptops. So I was watching a channel called Shoptime, and I waited until the moment they would show the latest laptop. And I would always envision, I want to have this thing, and so on. And I wanted to create things. So I got a computer, I started studying, I learned Excel, I learned a few things with macros and the other things. And then I said, I want to create stuff. I like this.
Mm.
And that's how I said, I'm going to go into software engineering somehow. How? I don't know, but I'm going to go into that. I was 14 back then when I decided I would go on this.
Jeff is asking, what were your favorite cartoons?
I was a big fan of Dragon Ball.
That's awesome. I mean, cartoons were also a big thing in my household. Okay, we're not going to try to calculate your age, but were you like, in those times where there was DOS, Microsoft DOS, and like dial up internet?
Dial-up internet, yes, that was the first connection. But DOS, I learned DOS, but I was beyond that. I was already on Windows 95 and 98, more to the 98.
Yeah, I think we're around the same age. I still remember those, because my mom had a daycare and she had these 386 computers. At that point, that was supposed to be outdated for the time, but she got a great bargain. And I still remember fiddling around, that downloading all those, no one please tell on me, pirated, DOS games to teach the kids. Those are good times. Okay, so you got into software engineering. That was a conscious decision. What made you decide to make the shift? And I think that was aligned to around the time you decided to leave Brazil, or was that before?
It was before. So what happened is, like, as a software engineer, I was always trying to find a way to jump into. So I was always working. When I was 14, I figured out how to do something to make some money, and was helping my uncles with their business or something. I was always doing something.
I feel like
So
that's, a common, cultural thing. I think our cultures are very similar. It's like the family always bribes you into like working in their business.
yeah, yeah. There was always something going on. So I was working on that. And then when I turned 18, I learned how to create websites. So I started selling websites to the local shops. I would say, hey, you're doing something here. Hey, you're missing an opportunity. Let me create a website for you. It was a
Oh
cool
my
thing.
goodness.
So yeah, then I started creating websites. But back then, I didn't have enough money to pay for the college. In Brazil, there are two formats, like the federal college, that you need to be ultra smart and dedicate your whole time for that. But I didn't want. I wanted to work and I wanted to go to college in parallel, because I wanted to have my own money. And I was also not so sure I could make it to a federal college. I studied always in public school, so I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. So I was
Mm.
thinking, should I go or not? But then, I let things be the way I would imagine they should take. And eventually, I end up in a technical school. So I developed more coding skills, and I started working a place coding. Then I managed to go into the public sector. And then it's the moment I started getting into books. So I said, okay, I'm going to learn how to code in Java now. So how do I start? So I bought 5, 6 books about Java, all of them in English. So then I got a certificate in Java, I started coding. And the city hall of this town was like my, they were the place I implemented many things. And then eventually I moved to another place, still coding. So I worked in 3 places as a software engineer. And I was always trying different things. And then what happened, how I decided to move to product was more like an opportunity presented to me than a conscious decision. The truth is, I wanted to be a software architecture. That
Wow.
was my a software architect. That was my conscious decision. I said I want to be this. So I was doing my best. Back then, I was already finishing my bachelor in computer science. So I managed to get a job that would enable me to go there. But then I still wanted to improve my English. I went to an immersion course, and then it's the moment that an opportunity was presented to me out of the blue. So the last day you had to show something how you develop your English. So we were there for 7 days. We couldn't speak any word in Portuguese, and then the last day, how was our progress? I took a software I was working on to present. So I said, I'm going to present this thing and I will explain how it works, why it is done like that, and what is expected to achieve. So I did that, a few slides. And then after the presentation, a guy called Leandro, he knocked my back and he said, hey, we need to talk. I have something to share with you. The funny thing is there were 20 people there. We didn't know what everyone did for living. We
Yeah.
only knew that we wanted to learn English. That was the only thing. uh, Turned out that this guy was a CEO.
My goodness.
Yes, he was a CEO in Sao Paulo. And then he told me, I have a job offer for you. I said, job offer? And then, like as almost all software engineers back then, I said, which programming language do you use? So that was my first question. And he looked at me, I have no idea. I said, okay. He said, yeah, but I don't want you to be a software engineer. I said, you don't want me to be a software engineer, but I am a software engineer. What are you talking about? And then he said, I want you to be a product manager. I said, what on earth is that? And he said, well, you don't need to worry about it. It's all about communication. You talk to people, you talk to loads of people, and the magic happens when you create value out of that. And then he looked at me, you're good with communication, you're going to do well. And you make complex things simple. So I like how you speak, and I'm pretty sure you're going to succeed. And then I said, if you believe I can do it, I'm quite curious. I'm really a curious person. Said, well, whatever. If it doesn't work, I go back to software engineering.
Wow. That's so brave. Because you mentioned earlier, imposter syndrome. And that must have been, going on for you, right? But at the same time, you have this, I will say, personality where you're like, you know what, it doesn't matter if I screw up. I don't mind, like, embarrassing myself. I'll be okay. Let me test things out. You have like this, test driven approach to everything you encounter in life. It's so cool.
Yeah, I have fears, of course, but my curiosity is bigger than my fear. So I always imagine how would it be, and when I face this challenge in life, I always ask the same question. It's always the same. If I take this, what would happen in 5 years? And if I have no idea what will happen, generally I take it. If I can imagine, I say, boring. Then I don't do it. So I always compare. Like it's always about comparison. So that's why I said about choices. You cannot have it all. I couldn't be a software engineer and a product manager. Said, what happens if I stay as a software engineer? I could imagine. So I was in a place. I could imagine continue doing software development. It was okay, but I said, But I start fantasizing living in Sao Paulo, the biggest town in South America. And I lived in a small town, important to say that, with like the town had 20,000 people. And then I would move to a 20 million people town. And then I said, oh, I will learn. Because I always, I want to know who I can learn from. And then I said, I will be able to learn from many people. I said, well, the worst thing that can happen, I will learn a lot of things. I may screw up, but I will be a better person after that.
That's amazing. I mean, it's not like there is a public repository of someone's name listed with all the F ups, they've made in their life. That's what I tell a lot of my clients when they worry about, yeah, but if I get this job and I screw up, what's going to happen? Is anyone going to hire me after this? And you're a great example of it's okay, you'll just learn and hopefully through that failure, you're going to know not to make that same mistake again. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, there's no way you would have written that book if it was rosy. Tell us what it felt like to do that job, as a product manager for the first time. Like what was like the scariest thing that you had to deal with?
Talked to a lot of people. I had no idea what they wanted. And they think it seemed like they precisely knew what they wanted. And everything seemed so important and had to be done by yesterday. And it was hard to prioritize and understand what truly mattered because there was a lot of pressure. So if we don't do that, we die. The business is going to suffer. So was everything like this. So that was hard, very hard to understand in the beginning. Prioritization, the power game, different stakeholders. And I always had this thing, I treat everyone the same. So I would listen to a director, I would listen to an individual contributor, and then I would try finding sense on something. But it was not like that. So if a director says it's different, if it's conflicting, I should go with the direct back then. So it was hard, all of these things, and kind of I like the toolbox. And I'm not talking here about uh, the frameworks and the software. As a software engineer, I knew how to code. I knew different techniques, so I knew how to build code. But in this case, things were more abstract, ambiguous. So it was
Mm.
very hard to learn how to navigate. And very important, that was 2012. I had a very strong technical background. I didn't have a business background, so it was hard to understand what they said.
How did you sharpen those business skills?
So yeah, that's one thing that keep happening with me. So I realize that something is missing. So I go and I try talking to people who I see as successful. So I always try to find someone who has done what I'm doing and the person succeeded. Then I ask, like, how did you get there? And then I got book recommendations in this case, some different courses, and then I started doing that and I started learning. And then I learned that was all about people and collaboration, communication, mindset, and so on. So that's when I got familiar with the Lean Startup and other books like Running Lean. And then I started learning and I started talking to more people who were ahead of me in the career, and they were the mentors of my life.
When I was reading your book, I really loved the part where you talk about there really shouldn't be separate, roles of product owner and product manager. Let's bust that myth right now. Can you please share with everyone your take on this?
There are things in life that they are a bug and they are not a feature. So the combination of product owner and product manager in separate roles, two people working, that's a bug. And as almost all bugs, it needs a fix. And how did this bug come to exist? It's a very simple way that came to exist. So Scrum had the role of a product owner. And then many companies start working with Scrum. And no one had any idea who the product owner would be. And the Scrum create a role. And the thing is, this role is best filled by a product manager. So companies that were trained properly they adapted this way. They would say, okay, the PM is the PO. PM is the job, PO is the role. So that was what happened. But then there are opportunities. So SAFE, which is like the undercover waterfall agent, so they try doing what companies want, which might not be what they need. So what they did, for example, they created by design the product manager responsible for the strategy and the product owner responsible for execution. Kind of the PM defines what is the right thing to do while the PO does the thing right. But that creates a dependency and creates a proxy communication and many other things and so on. And then because of all of the attention SAFe got, even companies that do not work with SAFe started having this. And then they started having all of this distribution of PM does something and PO does another thing. I worked in both scenarios already. I worked being a PO where there was a PM. I worked being a PM where there was a PO, and I worked with end-to-end responsibility. And nowadays, it's some time already, but when I was interviewing for other positions, I would always ask the question, how is the product team structure? And if I see there's a PM and PO combination, I don't consider.
Oh, wow. What's your advice for people who are more on the junior side of their career? I think, the word owner and manager can be quite scary for people. And it can also create a lot of misunderstandings because a lot of product managers out there, especially if they're early in their journey, they feel burdened by that responsibility. They feel like they have to know all the answers. What is the most practical, game changing piece of advice you can give to someone who is either trying to break into product management or just starting out in their, very first job as a product manager?
The very first thing is understand it's not about the process, it's not about the framework, it is all about collaborating. And a great product manager will know how to communicate with others. So you don't need to know it all. You need to collaborate and get alignment with others. So the role may get big if we try managing the job of each other. For example, that's when I say the product manager is demoted to a backlog manager. Spend almost all your time writing user stories and then trying to gather requirements from business and all of these things. Then you lose track of what you should be doing. And one of the things you want to break into product, talk to someone who started the career recently and see how you can start. Find a mentor. So get close to someone. And if you already joined the company as associate product manager, work close to another product manager, see what they are doing, help them. In the beginning, it's very unlikely the company will trust a junior product manager with end-to-end responsibility. So you're going to be more like a collaborator in one of the things, the initiatives they are working, but take it step by step. But the very first step is always developing the mindset, understanding what gets us closer to delivering value and what actually gets us in trouble. There are many things that will get us in trouble. For example, in the beginning, I wanted to avoid conflict, so everything people would ask me, I would put in the backlog. I would just put in the backlog.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I would put the placeholder, the magic placeholder. Just put the placeholder there. We talk later. We talk later. But later never comes. But the expectation is still there. People are gonna nail you on that. So the mindset is like, let's have a conversation and what are you trying to achieve with that? What does it matter? And sometimes you do need to say no. Say, hey, not now. Then the person asks you, put in the backlog. Say no, because the backlog needs to be related to the context you are in. So this kind of mindset you need to develop, because otherwise you are going to get trapped into the process instead of figuring out how you can adapt, because the product game requires like understanding what is happening right now, and then you can define your action. Your action might be talking to customers and running product experiments, might be getting alignment with business on the prioritization. It's different, it depends on your context. But if you fall prey to the process, You just don't have mental power for that anymore.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I love how you emphasize that in the book as well, is that one of the, you know, biggest skill sets that we all need to sharpen is the communication aspect and dealing with the people. You talk a lot about, as soon as we start, bringing in people into the equation, that's when the reality is different.
Yeah.
And now that you are, a CPO and head of product, right? More in the leadership role, what do you feel someone who's more intermediate senior needs to sharpen in order to move to that level?
Yeah. So first, you need to understand it's a different thing. So when I started being a leader, which was a few years back, I I tried to lecture people. I thought it was about helping them evolve continuously, which at some point it is. But first, you need to help them understand where they need to evolve and they need to make the commitment. So there is a balance of learning how to set goals, provide clarity, expectations of what to do and what not to do, alignment on that. And sometimes you need to decide where to ask questions and where to give answers.
Hmm.
So it's not always about giving answers. You may know what to do, but the person doesn't know. So how do you want the person to learn? You tell the person how to do it, the person doesn't learn. And help the person make the conclusion, the person learns. So it is a very different thing. So first thing I would say to grow, get some mentees. So start mentoring, and then you see the results. You can mentor in different ways. I started mentoring when I was a senior product manager. One of the things I did, I was mentoring inside the company. So someone asked, "Hey, how did you do this thing here? Can you help me? Oh, I want to do this. Can you help me with that?" So I started helping with that. And then is the moment I got into writing. So I start writing a lot and sharing my learnings and then talking to more people. But mentoring will help you prepare to become a leader before you become a leader. Because if you don't know how to mentor the others and you become a leader, big chance you're going to screw up in the beginning. You will be a bad leader before you become a good one.
That's such great advice. I think, a lot of intermediate senior product managers are too hung up on the delivery and getting things right and just putting their heads down and doing the work. But as you're becoming a leader, it's also about building up people and helping them grow versus wanting to just, keep all the knowledge and do everything on your own. That
Yeah.
is awesome. There is a question here. Um, can the PM be the lead of several product teams, each led by a PO, everyone in a same product? I will let you answer that one.
Well, in this case, for me, I would see a relationship between PM and PO, which I would not see the right one. If I would rephrase this saying, like, can a head of product, for example, be the lead of several POs? Yes, that could work. You can have different setups, like a group product manager responsible for one team, and then you have POs or PMs in the other teams. It is possible, but I would not have a relationship where POs report to PMs because that is just contradictory to empowerment, and that is not how it should be. Because there is a misunderstanding. We just talked about delivery here. Many companies bother with one question: how can we accelerate product delivery? That's when they start hiring product owners to take care of the backlog or the delivery part, and PMs to take care of the future. I think this is just wrong. For me, the question is different. The question should be, how fast can we drop bad ideas so we can focus on the
Mm,
good ones? Because delivering something fast just to learn it's wrong, it's not a good strategy. You will create a lot of noise before you can create any value at all. So what I prefer doing is having smaller teams with enough responsibility, end-to-end responsibility. You don't need to have teams with like 10 people and a responsibility that is unbearable for the team. Give them enough responsibility that they can work with.
yeah. And I love what Jeff here is saying that many organizations seem to be in that type of traditional thinking, separated roles, big plans, executive mandate, the direction. So, yeah.
What happens is it depends on the size of the organization, but many times we like talking about how we do the work, how we structure. And then when I see all of these things that happen, I say, when are we actually going to do the work? Because now we're just creating imaginary boundaries. So this person is in this box that will have the relation with this. Reality is totally different. It doesn't happen like that. All of these imaginary things just get in the way of true collaboration. And in the book, I wrote there are two ways of collaborating. In general, one is coordinative and the other is collaborative. A coordinative one will focus on roles. And the more you focus on roles, the more distant to each other we will be. And it's not a natural collaboration, it's a rational one. And that doesn't fly. At least I haven't seen flying.
Yeah, it seems that we sometimes get hung up on, creating that organizational structure when we really, and I'm stealing this totally from Jeff's book here. It really should be like organizing people around the work because the priority here is the value and delighting the customer, not, sticking to whatever the organization came up with in terms of titles and hierarchies. Hassan has a really great question here. How do you figure out which are the bad ideas?
Run product experiments, define what success looks like, and then you can drop bad ideas fast enough. So first thing is you are going to have many ideas. There are different ways of figuring out what are bad. The very first thing you can do is confronting your ideas with some anchors. So you take all ideas, you say, how does this idea contribute to the product vision? Cannot answer that? Bring your idea to the trash. The trash is your friend, not to the backlog. And you can ask another question. How does this relate to our current product strategy? Oh, it doesn't. So why should we even get ourselves distracted unless we are willing to change the strategy? And then you can ask, how does this help us get closer to our current goal? Oh, it does help. Okay, so let's invest some time into that now. And then what do you want to uncover? You want to uncover the sweet spot. How do you know customers want that desirability? How do you know it's viable from the business? Like you can collect some kind of business value. And how do you know you can do it? That's when you run product experiments. And product experiments can be different. When I decided to write the book, I ran several product experiments. First thing I posted on LinkedIn and I saw how people reacted. I ran surveys and then I did other things. And I can tell you that the very first idea of the book has nothing to do with the book that I published in the end.
I'm
Because
curious now, what was it?
well, my initial idea, I had an assumption that people wanted to know best how to apply frameworks on their reality. So that was my assumption and how to
Ah,
combine that with mindset. And then I realized that actually it was not really true. And I learned another thing. And then I said, but this thing I can also talk about. What I learned was, all right, I see all of these cool things in the other books, but I don't know how to apply my reality. My reality is different. I just feel stupid because I don't even know where to start. I said, oh, okay, that makes two of us because I felt stupid almost my whole journey as a product manager. So I could share stories on how reality looks like and what you could do to make it a little bit better. So coming from this perspective, then I learned that. And then I also had a question, can I write the book? So I
wow.
first wrote a guide. I called the strategy guide, and I posted my newsletter, which got quite some attention. But when I interviewed people, they took the message differently than I expected. So it didn't transport what I wanted. So it failed. So I couldn't continue writing that way. So I adapted, and that's why I put a lot of stories in the book. If you look there, there are 31 stories in total because the stories help people learn. So that's how you drop bad ideas. You confront your idea with reality as fast as possible. But the key thing is the very first investments, we are talking about hours, not days, not weeks. Then once you gain some evidence that justify investing further, then you invest more time. Because we need to move from making upfront plans to make bets, incremental bets. That's how we can drop ideas fast enough.
That's amazing. I really love how you really embrace that mindset, not just when you're building products, but I mean, in every aspect of your life. I think one of the biggest flaws that we have as human beings is we get too attached to our ideas because of our ego, and we're very scared of pivoting. We're just gonna, attach to an idea and then invest too much time. And then it just becomes very, very difficult to actually change direction. So I really love how you emphasize that, just make those experiments. And that's going to help you pivot faster because you're not going to spend too much time and overly attached. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I also think that one of your biggest strength, David, and maybe that comes from your software engineering archetype, is that you're a very disciplined person. Like I see a lot of creativity in you, but you're very like disciplined. Like you really hold yourself accountable to your learnings.
Yeah, that's true. And I was always trying to find a definition. I found that in a book from Adam Grant, and he said that he is not a procrastinator, he is a precastinator because he's always doing things before he commits to. So that has been how I have been doing everything in my life. For example, I have a keynote in Brazil December 3rd, and it's going to be a keynote in Portuguese. My keynotes have always been in English. Oh my
Wow.
God. So I need to prepare a presentation on that. And then the other day I said, you know what? I'm going to get this out of my mind. I'm going to just do it. So I did already. But one thing that happened with me is I love becoming a better person,
Hmm.
professional and personally. And I don't compare myself to anyone because context is different. I know only my context. I know where I came from, I know where I am, but I know my roots. So what I try always doing is learning something new. So I'm very curious and always trying to develop and trying to improve. And I am a big fan of developing habits. So I do many boring things, you know. So I just keep doing, even if I don't see the result immediately. When it comes to, you talked about followers, right? You said on LinkedIn I have 70 something thousand. I was preparing something and then I saw on Medium I have 90,000 followers, but very important. My first article on Medium was published, I think it was June 2017. Then the second one took 2 years to publish because I gave up on writing, so nothing
Yeah.
happened. But then I said, I'm going to post something every month. Then I started doing that in 2019 in Portuguese. Didn't get some traction. I moved from 27 followers to 50 in 5 months. 25, 27 to 50. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to write once a week. And then I kept doing that. Even if it didn't get that much of a resonance, I kept doing. I kept sharing, I kept sharing. Then I ended that year that I came back, started in English, was 2020, with 1,500 followers. So it took a year to move from 50 to 1,500, and then took another year to move to 5,000. And then it grew, and then it grew to 90,000. So growth doesn't happen from one moment to the other. So I believe in the power of interest, like a compound interest. So if you keep invest on yourself, even if you don't see the results, just keep doing, and you're going to see things happening. So I read a lot. So I just keep reading. I keep reading. I keep reading, and then eventually I get the opportunity of using that. So I'm very disciplined, and that doesn't mean I stay only at home. I take time for traveling. I do many things. I just enjoy, but I put things into time boxes. I say, this is a time box I'm writing. This is a time box I'm doing something else, and I keep doing that.
Wow. What do you think was the game changer that you learned as you were growing your following? Because I do have here from the audience people who are also content creators and want to grow their following. What do you think was something that you did that really helped?
Be authentic. Say what you think. No boundaries. Just say that. Say what you mean. If you think something is wrong, say it. If you think something is incredibly good, say it. But say with emotions on how you feel it. And don't take a lot of time crafting in there. Just write from the heart. Be
Yes.
honest, be authentic. So I think my most read post is are you doing product management or bullshit management? It's that one, and I I think when I wrote that, the first version was on LinkedIn. It was a post. I think it took around 5 minutes to write it, but it was honest. It was what I feel was feeling that moment. I just posted. I said, "This is what I want to share." And I don't have a strategy on saying how do I want people to. I don't have a strategy on how to get things to a viral effect and so on and so on. My strategy is simple. I want to help, and then if I care about something and I genuinely care, then more people are gonna care about it.
Well, it's exactly how we build, amazing products, right? If we overly fixate on how much money that product is going to make, and do it with intentions that are greedy and selfish, it's not going to happen. But when we have pure, authentic intentions of let me get to know my customers, let me learn from them, the money is a byproduct. So it's interesting how you also approach your content the same way. And I can confirm the same thing happened to me. My most viral post was something that I didn't overthink. I was scared of pushing the button. I had to share the link with a couple of people, and actually, I posted it, and then I shared with a couple of people. Oh my God, should I take it down? It was a story from my childhood of how it was difficult for me with my father, and I had to like leave home and restart my life. And it was extremely authentic. It wasn't with the purpose of I'm going to use it to get clients. It was really just sharing my story so that if someone is out there, going through difficulties, they connect with it and they feel that they're not alone. And I think that's something that you did a lot. I remember reading somewhere in your book that one of you that you were like a little bit stuck on what to write about, and you had a friend who said, "Well, instead of telling people what to do, why don't you just share, your mistakes, right?" And that really propelled you. So I really, really hear that. I'm going to pivot back to the questions because people are asking a lot of amazing questions. Um, what do you think of PMs taking on two roles, PM and developer?
Don't recommend. PM is the too big role. It's too much responsibility, and the developer, and it's a very different responsibility. As a developer, you are required to have a deep focus if you want to create something outstanding, and as a PM, you need to continuously keep flying at a different level, and then you go and alternating. So I cannot see this working. I cannot recommend that. It will be it will be half baked on both sides.
Yeah, I hear you. And then let's see. What do you suggest for those of us in the scenario of being a PM of a product with multiple POs owning a piece of the product, other than quitting the job? Oh dear.
Don't know if I have many suggestions on that because it's a scenario that I don't like working. But if I think about it, it's if you are a PM and you have the POs there on many teams, so there's a certain distance to the team. Like, how can you get them closer? That's what I would look like. How can you move from coordination to collaboration? What do I mean by that? So how can you get POs to understand the problem space and together craft solutions? collaboratively. I would try bringing the PM more to a PO responsibility as well, and as the PM in this case, more of a leader. So that's is a switch I would try to make. I would not encourage to foster POs to continue being more of POs. Because one a quick story I share with you is when I was working as a PO for one team. I had end-to-end responsibility back then, but I was telling the team exactly what to do. And then our startup got the Series A investment, and we were going to scale from one team to three teams. And the CEO decided that I would remain as the only product owner back then. And then I was panicking because I thought, I cannot write user stories as detailed as I have been doing for all of this amount of software engineers, which would be 20 plus. And then one software engineer came to me and said, David, how are you coping with this situation? I look at him, I said, I have no idea, I'm screwed up. And he said, yes, because you have always been telling us how to do our work, which has worked so far very well because you can define solutions and we can implement. But if you want us to take real responsibility, you need to empower us. You need, instead of telling us which weapon to use to kill the beast, you just point where the beast is and let us kill it. Let us focus on figuring out how to kill the beast. It's on us. You just point the direction. And that's what I would say. If you are in this situation, point the direction, empower, and then lead by context, not by control.
That's great advice. And the career coach in me can't help but say, Susanna, unfiltered, that I mean, if that's truly how you feel, and I don't know, because jobs are relationships, really, if you think about it. And sometimes relationships are meant to serve us for a certain period of time. We learn a lot from them. We hit a plateau in terms of growth. You might want to ask yourself what's holding you back from exploring other relationships. Is it fear possibly that you might not find something better? Or do you still truly feel that there is something that you could do differently and grow from, right? So these are questions that you might want to ask, yourself, to make sure that you're not just staying, for the wrong reasons. But that's such a great question. Thank you so much for sharing. And Enrique, you have a similar question. So I think, David already answered it. Wonderful. Alan Noosh, what strategies do you use to implement changes in your product team if you are an individual contributor? And I'm just going to add to that, David, because in a lot of your story, you talk about how you challenge the status quo, how you use evidence and just push back in terms of not just going with people's opinions. The thing is, I think that Alanush is also might be asking is, how did you get them to give you a chance to do that? Because some organizations are going to be like, no, 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 you're not allowed to do this. We're not giving you time to do the discovery. We're not giving you time to gather the data. How do you kind of do that without stepping on people's toes?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because let's say my first attempt didn't work. My first attempt was about helping people understand why we should do something. But the question I asked was wrong. Can I do something? And if you ask this question, you already have 50% chance of getting a no. It's a yes or no. Can I do? And if people are trapped in a situation and you are seeing this is not working already, people don't like being lectured and they don't like being told that something is wrong. So it's hard. But there's one thing that works if you show results. If you show results and you talk with results at your hand, then you can start driving change because it's very hard to neglect results. I'll give you an example. You always receive features to work and you know those features are wrong, plain wrong, they don't deliver value. So what you can do, you ask, like, what are we assuming to happen here? We are assuming that customers are going to use it. We're assuming they are going to pay for it. What if you just run product experiments? Figure out the one. Don't ask for permission, just do it. So you run product experiments, you collect evidence, and then you say, this is what I learned and I want to share with you. And then from there, I want you to take a direction. I want you to make a decision. So you bring results to the table and then you have a dialogue based on the results, not based on what you would like to do differently because you already did it. So that's one thing that I like doing. But a small thing, not a big change. Because many times people think, what is the big change I can drive? Very unlikely you can drive a big change immediately, but you can help them see what you are seeing with results.
Yeah, it's like you have to gradually build trust with people before you go for those big changes. And no one likes to feel like, someone, I mean, I'm just going to go with the dating analogy, right? Like when I met my partner, for the first time, he came into my place and he wanted to rearrange the whole thing. And he's like, no, 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 trust me, this is going to be good. And I said, no way, man, right? It's like too much, it's overwhelming. And so then, when we built trust, he started fixing things, and now I trust him, like to fix, the craziest, like my dishwasher and all this stuff. So you kind of need to build that trust first to make those changes. Okay, we're gonna end with one question. I am just going to summarize Rajesh's question and just go for lots of people, getting laid off. What is the skill set that we need to develop as PMs? Do we need to be more technical?
Yeah, it's there's always this discussion: do PMs need to be more technical? What do you need to do? I I worked in different places, and it's hard for me to say about the technical part because I was a software engineer. So let's just look at this aspect here. But I have seen many successful product managers that are not technical, and I have seen many unsuccessful product managers that are technical. So there are both sides of the coin. But the trait I have seen in common, actually, there are three traits. One is curiosity. Product managers need to be always curious, like what could we do different, what are the problems worth solving, and why are we doing this. So there's always this curiosity. You are asking questions, you are trying to learn. And then it comes a second that supports the curiosity, because being curious means that sometimes you will ask some questions and you're going to get answers you don't like. Some people don't want to answer all questions. And the second is resilience. PMs must be resilient, because one thing, you're going to hit the wall, you're going to fall down, and yet you need to stand up tall, move forward. And I say that a good PM is like Rocky Balboa. It's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And the third trait is about the drive. So some
Hmm.
people, they shift the responsibility of motivation to the company, to the environment. The truth is, it is on you. So how can you get motivated with the challenge you have? Because there are two ways of playing the game. You can look at the cards you don't have and you say, I am missing strategy, I am missing vision. You know what? I don't play. I fold. I just won't play. And then you get stuck, and then you're going to go in a rabbit hole, and nothing nice is going to happen out of that. And the other way can be like this: I don't have strategy, I don't have vision, but I do have a roadmap here that I could have a conversation. So you look at the cards you have and you play the game to the best you can. So self motivation to do something. I have never been in a outstanding scenario that everything was perfect just to collect the fruits of the promised land of product management. As most people, I have been in a scenario I call the harsh reality. Things are and like a little bit contrarian to how they should be, but I have a drive of driving change, of making things differently. That motivates me. And as a PM, you need to have a drive. It needs to come from within. That helps you. Then you're going to stand out, because when people are complaining, people are rejecting doing the job, You are there. You are trying things. Keep trying, and so on. So these three characteristics: curiosity, resilience, and the drive. I think it's what makes many people stand out.
That is an amazing way to bring closure to this, LinkedIn Live. Everyone, please go now, do it. Follow David, look at his book, buy it, because I know you all have more questions. And hey, we would probably be spending hours because of all of the amazing golden nuggets that David has. So, my best advice is go follow him so that you can find out what events he goes to and so that you can ask him more questions. I know, David, you have a course, so check that out as well. And you are teaching at Product Faculty as well, a course?
No, I'm attending a course there
You're
actually.
attending a course.
Yes,
Awesome.
yes, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. So, buy the book, follow him. And thank you so much, David, for, sharing all of your stories. It's such a pleasure to have you on here. The storyteller nerd in me has been so excited because rather than just talking about your credentials and your accolades, you actually shared a lot of amazing stories that people can definitely learn from. All right, everyone, we're gonna end the live stream now. If you have further questions for David, please follow him and attend his events. And David, I'm just going to talk to you for like a couple of minutes after I end the stream. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate you taking the time during your day to listen and support this event. I have an event next week on Tuesday on storytelling and how to craft your story. So if you are interested, drop in the comments and we'll make sure that we send you the invite. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.